let's go ahead and then get started here. All right, so right, the whole main topic is the Industrial Revolution, how industries grew, pretty much how right, this rapid growth of industries really improved the everyday life of people. And one big one we saw is this transportation revolution, right? The revolution and the growth of transportation during this time. So during the 1800s, the U.S. was transformed by a transportation revolution, right? It was transformed, completely changed. So we see a period of rapid growth in the speed and convenience of travel because of new methods we see. Right, so it pretty much went from, right, remember the word revolution is going from one change, right, to another, pretty much a big change into how life was. hmm yeah, yeah, the time is cut in more than a half. So this transportation revolution created a boom in business, particularly by reducing shipping time and cost, right? So not even transportation and travel for people, but we see goods, information, right? Remember when we were talking about during our westward expansion unit, the invention of the railroads, we saw, right? It was able to connect the eastern part of the United States with the newly developing western part, and they were able to ship goods and ideas and information there. So not just people, but you have to think about all this other as well. Are we good? Oh, these improvements were, right, made largely by the invention of steamboats and trains. So steamboats, right, we saw in the westward video, remember the America, the Story of Us, okay, really improving the transportation of goods, especially like down the Mississippi River. And then we also see then steam powered trains. Okay, so again, both of them being largely ran by steam power. So they have to burn coals, and then they use that steam to get the engines going. Mm-hmm. Are we good? 1807, Robert Fulton tested the Clermont, the first full-size commercial steamboat, which could travel upriver. So before, right, using just regular boats, they go with the movement of the water, right? Okay, it's very hard. If you ever have anyone have ever tried to swim like upstream, like going against the current, okay, it's hard. It's a workout. That's why they make those swimming pools, those infinity swimming pools where you can just swim and stay in one place basically because it's pushing it against you. Okay, but now with this power of the steamboat, they were able to travel upriver, going against the direction of the water. That's what it means when upriver. Are we good? Okay. So, this Gibbons versus Ogden is a court case that we see revolving around this transportation revolution. So, in 1819, we have Thomas Gibbons thought his federal license gave him the right to use New York waterways, but Aaron Ogden sued Gibbons for operating steamboats in waters that Ogden owned. Okay, so we have a court case revolving around here transportation. I'm not really sure. You'll have to look that one up. That'd be a great piece of information if you want to look that up sometime and let us know. But we do see, a pattern we have seen throughout history is that a lot of people or cities are named after people. Yeah, so, yeah. So here's what happened. Okay, it went to the Supreme Court, and look, it takes time. Okay, for it to go to the Supreme Court. Bless you, whoever that was. So it takes time. Bless you again. For the court case to happen. Okay, so it doesn't just happen right away. The court system actually takes quite a bit. But the Supreme Court reinforced the federal government's authority, okay, to regulate trade between the states by ending this monopolistic control over waterways and states. Monopoly. Okay, who's playing the game Monopoly? What is the goal of that game? So what does that mean, though? You want to own everything of one color, right? And then eventually you want to own like everything. Okay, that's to have a monopoly. You can control, right, and no one else has control over it. Okay, and so this idea, right, any monopolistic control, that means not one person can have control over, in this case, waterways in several states. Only the federal government. Okay, so this court case is another one like the two that we talked about in the westward expansion unit. We're starting to see that the federal government, right, these court cases reinforces the authority of the federal government, especially over state governments. So it strengthened the idea that national interests should be placed ahead of regional concerns. The ruling freed up waters to even greater trade and competition within the shipping industry. So again, we see the strengthening of the federal power over state power. I guess we'll see. Yeah. Are we good? All right. So let's look at some railroads here. So in 1830, Peter Cooper built a small but powerful locomotive called the Tom Thumb. About 1860, okay, so look at 30 years later is when we see about 30,000 miles of tracks linked almost every major city in the eastern United States. 30 years later, after kind of like the first, right, locomotive, the engine. Locomotive is like the engine part of the train, okay? We see, right, and look at, they're linking every major city together. Eventually, yes. As the railroad system grew, manufacturers and farmers could send their goods to distant markets. Right? They're not just having to send them locally. They're able to send them to, distant cities. So, right? New York is able to send goods to Chicago, and so forth. Or New York's able to send goods to Atlanta, and down in the South. So people in all areas of the nation now had access to products made and grown far away, helping create a national economy. Right? More of the country is able to receive these goods, not just the areas where it's being produced. So remember, the wealth was, but wealth is still going to be concentrated in the north, and that is mainly because that is where still all the goods are being made. Right? All these factories are in the north. Towns developed at railroad junctions. So where kind of railroads met, towns started more coming and developing. And so then the towns that did not really have railroads nearby, they began to decline. People wanted to live and build businesses by these railroads because then they can ship off their goods to other places easier. And if you didn't have a railroad nearby, you were not able to ship off your goods as easy. Hmm. Yeah, and so that's why we see towns really developing around these railroad junctions, these railroad stops, and towns not kind of declining. And then we see coal replacing wood is kind of the main source of power, and it became popular for heating homes. So we see the use of coal, and that's why then we'll get coal miners being it's a very dangerous job, but a lot of people who needed the money, they worked those dangerous jobs because they needed the money. I mean, we even see kids working in coal mines because they're trying to help out their families. Were we good? I'm sorry. Yeah? Okay. So, right, just what I was just talking about, coal mining industry developed in many states, such as Pennsylvania and Western Virginia. And again, like we saw, or like I was saying, it's a very dangerous occupation to work in a coal mining. Um, I mean, not really comparable, but how many of you have seen the movie The Hunger Games? Okay, you know, District 13, like they work in the coal mines and stuff. What? Is it? Yeah, sorry, District 12. Sorry, thank you. Right, and there's explosions that happen all the time. It's dangerous because there's a lot of gases that come off from that, and if anything that gas gets any sort of spark, fire, or whatever, it's going to cause an explosion, and so it's a very dangerous occupation actually. Yeah. Mhm. Yep. Trapped. You inhale. That's why actually a lot of like fire, like anything, if you have a fire in your house, a lot of people, if they don't get burns or anything, but they inhale the smoke, and that causes a lot of damages. So smoke really causes a lot of damages. All right. Well, sure. All right. So the effects of railroads, right? We already see the development of railroads helped establish new markets. Some cities, such as Chicago, became transportation hubs. I mean, Chicago is still one of the biggest transportation hubs. It's like pretty much it's the biggest central city in the country. Oh, there's so many trains in Chicago. I mean, even I grew up kind of more closer to the suburbs, and we would take the train into the city, like in high school and stuff. We would take the train into the city. It's only like a 45-minute train ride, and then go hang out downtown. I remember there's a train that would have freight trains cross like right by my high school, and you never wanted to get behind that. Like you never wanted to get stuck, or you'd be late to school, or you'd literally be sitting there for 10 minutes. So it was definitely there's a lot of railroads. I mean, my dad lives right by one. Uh, there's railroads everywhere there. I'd say geographic for sure, and then it was definitely a developing city, and it has a lot of factories. And if you think about it too, it was the biggest city from the eastern region of the United States to the newly developing western region, right? I mean, it's much bigger than St. Louis, and it was there before St. Louis, and so we see it as a kind of and then also from the east, it would go a lot of times to Chicago and then go down south, right? So it kind of went like this way. I mean, even today, if you want to look at it even in more advanced, Chicago O'Hare Airport is one of the like busiest airports in the country. It's used a lot of times as where you go for a layover, where you're between flights and stuff. Okay. All right. We're gonna stop there because I didn't want to again over.